Yeah. Just waiting for some quiet in this room. Could we all? Nice. Could we all sit down and begin?
Coffee? What is this all about?
We're just nice enough now.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Happy, and yours is?
David.
David.
Yeah.
Someone runs the David.
You ready now?
Are we ready?
Everyone?
So what you're.
Welcome, everyone, and I will call on Guy to offer our land acknowledgement.
Well, I apologize right off the start because I've been so focused on the technical issues we're faced with that I forgot all about the land acknowledgement. But anyway, I want to acknowledge that we are indeed on the land that's governed by Treaty 6, and it was a land that was all open to Indigenous people to roam for 10,000 years freely until the settlers started coming, and they really killed all the buffalo and all the sustenance for the natives to sustain themselves, and they brought in diseases, and the various laws over the years got them isolated onto small areas, and they were starving, and they were sick, and they were really in trouble, and a lot of the indigenous people were dying. So the chiefs got together and requested more than once requested to the Governor General of the Dominion of Canada that they have a treaty, an understanding, a contract with the government so that they could sustain themselves in some meaningful way. And the contract was that they would grant access to all of the land in this area, Treaty 6 area, which includes much of central Alberta and Saskatchewan and into BC a little bit. And in exchange for that, they were expecting to get some food and some medicine, some farm equipment, and the land designated to their own exclusive use. And they got most of that, except that the Canadian government actually reneged on most of the promises. But the meaningful part to us is individuals occupying this land now is we have the right to be here and buy and sell land, and I'm certainly grateful for that. So in that sense, us being all treaty people, we are the beneficiaries of Treaty 6, and we should be grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy.
Well.
And welcome to all once again.
Yes. Thank you all for your patience, especially Dr. Gervais. Everything that almost everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, except the building hasn't been struck by lightning for about 8 months now.
Good news.
Yes, we set up a recurring link for lunch and learn, but this month is a different day, and nothing was set up at all, not on the right day or the wrong day, so that's what happened there. So it is my great honor to introduce Dr. Marie Gervais. She is a life member of the center and has served on our board for at least 2 terms, I believe. Marie is a managerial trainer and both an International Coach Federation trainer and a certified emotionally focused practitioner. And I think we're all looking forward to learning more about that because I only know the tiniest bit. What she does is help clients learn emotional regulation to heal career and life wounds. A Baha'i since 1979, she has served on several institutions and actively coordinated neighborhood development activities. She is the author of This Spirit of Work, Timeless Wisdom, Current Realities, presented a haven and refuge from severe mental stress, severe mental tests, Baha'i teachings, and polyvagal theory, which the accent is on polyvagal. Polyvagal, Marie? Thank you. For the ABS, I presume that's the Baha'i Association North American Conference in 2025, and has written a chapter about the Baha'i concept of spiritual education of children and youth for a book that will be published this year. And that's the very briefest I could possibly do as an introduction for Marie. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Nita. It's actually called polyvagal theory, and I'll be talking a little bit about it today. And the book has been published, and I'll send it to Interfaith to be included in the next newsletter. It's Religion and Spirituality in Child Development Around the World from a World Religions perspective. It's got all these really interesting chapters from what different religious groups and countries around the world have contributed towards child development from a spiritual and moral perspective. It's really cool. And I got to write a chapter in that book, and it's published and it's open source. So that means that you'll be able to access it for free and download any of the chapters you like instead of paying $200+ to get a textbook.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm really happy to be able to present today, and I'm going to talk about regulation and reverence, how the nervous system and spiritual life intersect. And the reason I thought about that is because in most faith communities, people have very high ideals. And then sometimes we think that we are actually at the ideal just because we believe it, when in fact, we aren't there yet in practice, in our bodies or in our beliefs. And so trying to figure out why and how to integrate that better is something that's been of interest to me for many years. And now I have some tools that can help everybody with that. So that's what I'll present about today. And I think we will have time for questions afterwards. If you have a burning question, you can put it in the chat or write it down and pass it to Gail or Netta so that we can put those questions out and answer them later. Okay, so here is the PowerPoint. So I'm going to also include some writings from the Baha'i Faith that have to do with this idea that there's something involved in healing that is neither material nor spiritual, but in between, because I think it's pertinent to what we're doing today. And some of things about, and it's in all of the faith traditions, but I didn't have time to research everybody's for this presentation. But I would like to do more comprehensive research and say references to the body and the spirit in sacred writings of the world religions would be really interesting because there are lots of them. And so I will also talk about that. So the first thing, I think the first concept to start with is the purpose of religion. Like, what is religion for? What is it? And what is its role in regulating emotions and behavior? Because it does have a role. So this is a quote from the Baha'i writings that says, the fundamental purpose animating the faith of God and his religion, meaning all the religions of the world, they're all chapters of one book according to the teachings of Baha'u'llah, is to safeguard the interests and promote the unity of the human race. So if religion is safeguarding the interests and promoting the unity of the human race, it is doing its job. And to foster the spirit of love and fellowship amongst men. So people become, and remember, this is written in an old language that was 200 years ago, more common. So it will sound a little bit less familiar to us. But the concept of safeguarding the interests, promoting the unity, and fostering a spirit of love and union between peoples is certainly present and important for all of us. So the next part of the quote is, suffer it not to become a source of dissension and discord, of hate and enmity. This is the straight path, the fixed and immovable foundation. So insofar as religion does what is intended to do, which is to promote love and unity, and safeguard the interests of the human race, the interests that lead to us living in a happy and healthy way together, it is fulfilling its purpose. If it doesn't do that, it is not fulfilling its purpose and it's causing harm. So the next part is, if we have all this guidance from the world religions, which we do, we've had guidance for thousands of years, why don't we do it? Why aren't we following it? Because if we would have followed it in the very beginning, with the first indigenous messengers from God, we would be in a better place right now, and we may not have needed more and more messengers to come and instruct us, but we aren't doing it. So why? Why aren't we doing it? And the answer so far, according to my understanding at this point, lies in our survival instinct and our nervous system. And so here is another quote from the Baha'i writings about that. You are even as the bird which soareth with the full force of its mighty wings and with complete and joyous confidence through the immensity of the heavens. So that's us trying to live our spiritual existence in a physical body. Until, impelled to satisfy its hunger, it turneth longingly to the water and clay of the earth below it, and having been entrapped in the mesh of its desire, findeth itself impotent to resume its flight to the realms from whence it came. So we are spiritual beings, we're living in a physical body, we're trying to survive, and that survival and that struggle for survival keeps us from focusing on spiritual things often. And also we tend to focus on mundane things, so when's the next meal coming? And things like that, which then become big concerns, because if we don't know where the next meal is coming from, it takes up a lot of our emotional and mental energy. So the way I like to explain this is faith is like a balloon. It's like a hot air balloon. And it's our intention, our aspirations, and also the inspiration that we receive from belief. And it guides us with spiritual principles that can help us to live better if we follow those principles. And we often believe we're in that hot air balloon when in fact we aren't quite there yet, because we have bodies, which would be the basket where people can stand inside to go on a trip with the hot air balloon. And we have anchors, which are the unpleasant emotions that the nervous system uses to keep us alive and safe. But if we misperceive them or misread them, they end up setting us down a rabbit hole. So you think a hot air balloon is on the ground, it's got anchors that are taken out of the basket on the ground so that it doesn't lift off before people are ready. And when everybody's ready and there's enough hot air in the balloon, they lift the anchors off, and lo and behold, the balloon moves forward. Our nervous systems keep us from doing what faith intends us to do if we are afraid and feel threatened, whether or not it's real. So if we perceive fear and threat, the nervous system will shut down our intentions. So it's something we haven't done before, or that's uncomfortable or unfamiliar to us. We're not likely to do it, even though our faith teachings show us and tell us that we should do it. And we know it would be good for us to do it and for everybody else, but we feel stuck or trapped. And we're going to do a couple of practical exercises today, and also talk about in what circumstances this applies so that you get something tangible out of this presentation. So faith and emotion are related but separate. They do have an overlap. You can have spiritual feelings, and usually spiritual feelings are joy, love, peace, unity. And if you look at them on the vibrational scale, because every emotion has vibrations to it, the highest emotions are the spiritual emotions. Faith, hope, love, joy, peace. That's the highest vibrational scale. That's where we're in our spiritual selves and acting appropriately within that true self and within whatever the teachings of our faith are. And we're inspired by it. And emotion is a barometer for safety. So if your nervous system feels unsafe, you will not be able to act on something you do or you want to do. But as soon as it feels safe, you think, oh, I could probably do that. Here's a way I could do it. So you start to feel safe in your nervous system, and that allows you to have a connection with the spiritual emotions. Otherwise, all the other emotions are necessary because we need them to stay alive and to make life interesting. And we have a tendency to say some emotions are bad and we should get rid of them or dismiss them or pretend we don't have them, and some are good. When in fact, all emotions are neutral. They're just there to keep us alive. So if we think of it that way and we're not judging the validity of the emotion, then we can have a better experience with life. And faith and emotion intersect with the body, the mind, and the nervous system instantly at the same time. So the body will sense, it'll feel, it'll react. So you can smell something, it'll bring you back a memory for 30 years later or earlier, I mean. The body will react, and the mind can choose to believe things, to act with resolve, and to spend time reflecting on experiences and making sense of them. That's part of the mind's duties. And the nervous system is really only there to respond to safety or threat. That's what it's there for. And it's a part of our vagus nerve, which is at the back of our brain, and it spreads mostly into our heart and gut and then arms and legs. And so that vagus nerve is constantly on alert and it's looking to see, are we safe? Are we in danger? Are we safe? Are we in danger? It happens constantly. And then the body reacts instantly to whatever signals are coming from the nervous system. So we can't actually control a reaction. We can't make ourselves stop feeling something, but we can create an environment of safety. And to do that, we need to think a little bit about the fact that 80% of the nervous system responses come up from the body to the brain, and only 20% move down from the brain to the body. So we spend most of our lives ignoring our bodies, abusing them, not including them in our spiritual practices, and then we wonder why we're having trouble living our faith guidelines. All of this is based in starting to acknowledge and appreciate the fact that we have a wonderful, beautiful creation of a body that works almost totally on its own without any interference from us. And once we start listening to the messages of the body, which come in the form of tension, pain, and nervousness and anxiety, then we go, oh, something's going on. I maybe need to pay attention to that. When we pay attention to those things, then we start to regulate the nervous system. That's called metacognition. So first you notice what's happening, and then you start thinking differently because the blood flow moves out from the fight flight part of your brain into the whole part of your brain, and your whole brain can think. And then you go, oh, right, that was just a cat and the shadow, and that's what scared me. It really wasn't anything. Or if it is a real threat, what do I need to do to keep myself safe? So you can actually think better in every situation when you learn to calm the environment of your nervous system through your body. So the way to do this is to tune in to what's going on inside your body. Like, oh, I'm feeling defensive right now. I wonder what's going on. That's a tuning in thing. Or, oh, I'm having trouble breathing. Maybe I should just slow down my breath. That's tuning in. Or I think I need to get up and move. I haven't moved enough today. That's tuning into your body. So tuning into the body allows you to be more open to the promptings of the spirit and spiritual intimations. And then we need to attune to the spirit. So if we aren't attuning to the spirit, we're not getting any spiritual guidance, we're not looking to follow guidance and to improve our behavior, then we don't become the master of our emotions. Our emotions sabotage us. So tuning into the body is very important, but it's not enough. Attuning to the spirit is very important, but it's not enough because together they help us to see the whole picture. So this is just 3 things from the long obligatory prayer in the Baha'i writings that make reference to the spirit and the body. And the whole point of the long obligatory prayer is for us to recognize in complete humility how small and insignificant we are in the face of the Almighty. And if we have a role to play, let it be God's will. So that's what you're doing in the long obligatory prayer. And here you see, so there are so many references to the body in that prayer. I just picked 3. Thou seest, O my God, how my spirit hath been stirred up within my limbs. So there, within my limbs. Think of the vagus nerve going into your limbs and its members, so your whole body, in its longing to worship thee. So when we're tuned to the spirit, our entire body longs to worship. My back is bowed by the burden of my sins. So I'm feeling, oh, all these shortcomings that I have, it's such a heavy burden. It makes my back feel bowed. Or whenever I ponder my evil doings and thy benevolence, my heart melteth within me and my blood boileth in my veins. You think of your heart melting and blood boiling because you think, oh, I really need to be humble in the face of the Almighty, in the presence of God right now. So you can see how this is one of the ways in which spirit and the body can connect. And people will say, at the time of Revelation, it was as if the flame of fire went through the body of the prophet, or there are lots of different things that talk about the effects of the spirit on the body. So we live those effects, those spiritual effects, but we also live the nervous system effects that affect our perception of what we should be doing or what we can be doing spiritually, and also our ability to turn in a pure-hearted way to the Creator. So we think that we are consciously controlling what we are doing, and it is typically people say, I need to change my mindset or my attitude, which you can do. Between 10 and 20% of your conscious decisions happen that way. But if your emotions say, you know what, I don't feel safe, it'll shut you down. And here's an example: procrastination, brain fog, suddenly feeling very sleepy and not being able to concentrate on something you actually wanted to do, but you're kind of scared to do once you start thinking about it. Those are some of the things that show that your emotions are shutting down your intent. Or you might think, I'm going to go in this conversation and be calm. I will calm myself down and I will listen with interest and curiosity to the other person. And then the other person says something that really triggers you and you just see red. That is your emotions taking over. And unless you have some tools to calm that down and regulate, it will be you saying and doing things you regret later. The other thing that really affects what we do in our decisions is our beliefs about whether we're going to succeed or fail. So go, oh, I would serve on this committee, or I would like to go to this event and be a part of it, or yes, let me say yes to this service project, but I'll probably mess it up. I won't be very good at it. Or, so that's the ego jumping in, those beliefs about failing, or beliefs thinking I'll be the best in the room and nobody else will be as good as me, equally ego. So either false modesty or extreme narcissism are both beliefs about success or failure that are sabotaging us and stopping us from moving forward. Don't worry, there's a way out. We're getting to the good part. This is just to show you that there is a picture of what's going on that would explain why we have trouble aligning our beliefs and our actions. So they do integrate. So let's look at that now. And I thought this two butterflies that are similar but different is kind of a nice metaphor, and also shows that, it's a beautiful thing, the way we were created and what we have to learn about ourselves. And we will have centuries of work to learn about how we operate and learn, and how we can become more effective in our spiritual development, because there's so much in the human spirit. So now this was the quote that started me on this whole search about 5 years ago. And it is a quote from Abdul Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, founder of the Baha'i faith. And he said, the powers of the sympathetic nerve. So I'm thinking, okay, 150 years ago, somebody is talking about the sympathetic nerve. And only now are we talking about polyvagal theory, which is how we start working with this. So the powers of the sympathetic nerve are neither entirely physical nor spiritual, but are between the two systems. Its phenomena will be perfect when its spiritual and physical relations are normal, meaning we're not in a normal situation yet. When the material world and the divine world are well co-regulated. So here, Abdu'l-Baha is already talking about co-regulation. When the material world and divine world are well co-regulated, when the hearts become heavenly and the aspirations grow pure and divine, perfect connection will take place. And why do I have this sudden thing that I don't want? Stop that. Stop drawing. It's not moving. Sorry, now I'm having my own tech issues here. Stop the draw. I do not want to draw. Stop drawing. Get rid of this. Yes. All right. Then will its power produce a perfect manifestation. Physical and spiritual diseases will then receive absolute healing. So right now we have some physical things from various different healing traditions and from Western medicine. And then we have some spiritual things, which is prayer, meditation, contemplation, and spiritual interventions for people on their behalf for healing. But then when we start to understand the regulatory power of the sympathetic nerve and start using it intentionally, we will be able to affect complete healing on things, which is be really exciting. And I'm seeing that in my practice. It's very wonderful to watch. So this is our brain, and that's the spinal cord. And down at the base of the spinal cord is the vagus nerve, which you're not seeing here. You're just seeing the spine. The amygdala is the alarm system. There are actually two of the amygdalae, and they respond to threat. with either fight or flight. And people are also saying that there's a fawn response, but I don't see that myself in people as a first response. I see it as a second response. And it tends to be more women who have a fawn response. So the fawn response is trying to please your oppressor so they will harm you less. So usually it's fight or flight, and if you can't do that, you may move to fawn. And then what happens is your whole body goes into hormonal supercharge. So you get cortisol and other hormones that are necessary for you to flee or to protect yourself. And if you keep staying in that stressed state, then your body always feels like it's under threat and you become paranoid and you suspect everybody of seeking to harm you. Wouldn't you say that's the state the world is in right now? Everybody's paranoid. They're scared of everything. And that is because we're at this low to medium level stress constantly, and our nervous systems are telling us there's danger when there is none. And that's why it's so easy for fear-mongering to take place, because we're already in a state of feeling anxious at a lower level. And as soon as fear-mongering happens, it shoots way up. And it doesn't come down again when we sleep, which is why we have so many heart problems and things like that. So there are ways to fix that, but helpful to know that this is what's happening and that paranoia can be the result. So if you're starting to feel paranoid about things, you're probably in a state of anxiety that you haven't noticed and regulated. Then the other thing that happens is the cerebral cortex starts to have some stories like, oh, that person doesn't care, and that's why that person was late. They don't care. They don't have any feelings of empathy. So that becomes a judgment of character. But me, I was just late because, I had too many red lights. So you make an excuse for yourself, but you make a character judgment on the other person. That's a false story. And that's also what we're doing. We're saying we are doing the right thing. These people, if they would do the right thing, they would get better results. They should be like us. So that is also a threat response. So you can see how this is causing us problems in the world because that's what we're experiencing in our bodies. Over time, we associate memories differently and we remember them differently and we give them different meanings. And that's part of the meaning and sense making of the human spirit. But that's normal and good. But what is not helpful is when we continuously assume other people are at fault or have bad character, and that we, on the other hand, are better. All of those things cause problems. And that comes from a dysregulated nervous system. So the amygdala is the survival instinct. It releases the stress hormones and prepares the body for danger. The hippocampus causes memory and recall and helps us to restore and retrieve things that happen to us. So I think, I met somebody from Poland 2 years ago and they were very rude. Therefore, all Polish people are rude. See, that's the problem that the hippocampus will do. So if you wait a minute, maybe I need to meet more Polish people. So if you meet 10 Polish people, you go, oh, not all of them were rude. That was just one bad experience. Then your hippocampus is starting to fill its proper function. And you turn to your prefrontal cortex, which then has full blood flow and you can think accurately. So we're moving past survival and false stories, taking a breath, tuning into our bodies, tuning into the spirit allows us to move past all of those survival pieces and move into the powers of the mind, which are part of the powers of the soul, not the brain, but the mind, and allows us to have access to spiritual intimations that we would have missed otherwise. So right now we're kind of living like this masked person, and we think nobody sees what's going on, when in fact we can see what's going on everybody. We just don't know how to interpret it or what to do about it. And it can be also scary. So we're going to now move into some safety. So what do we do to increase safety in the nervous system? And then how is this going to align with faith? Well, the most important one is to acknowledge feelings and sensations. And the immediate access that we have to that is just noticing our breath. I have a breath. It is coming in and out of my nose, and I'm noticing it. You don't have to slow it or do anything to it. You just notice it. It is the only autonomic nervous system function that we can consciously notice and control. So now I can decide to slow my breath down. I can go in, hold it, blow it out. and I'm starting to feel calm. So that's your first acknowledgement. And you can do that anywhere. And the more you practice it, the more you will have it at the command of inspiration. So if something comes up, they'll automatically start noticing your breathing and will regulate, which means you will perceive reality much more accurately, your own and what's outside of you. And the other part is to acknowledge that you have a feeling. I'm feeling really jealous right now, or I'm feeling so excited right now. Acknowledging and naming the feeling is a sign of capacity to regulate. I'm sure you've met people who every time they speak, the only thing that comes out of their mouth is every second or third word is a swear word or a stream of swearing. Okay, have you met people like that? If you introduce to them an emotion word and they start using it, they will start regulating. Because when you have nothing to name your emotions, you're in a constant state of anxiety. And one of the ways that people come back into that state of anxiety is by returning to their past habit of swearing with every second word. So when they do that, it's a negative neural loop that keeps them in a state of anxiety. So naming emotions is a very important thing. Naming a sensation. I feel this tension in the back of my neck. It's kind of prickly. Is also necessary. So the more you have sensation words and emotion words, and then from the spiritual perspective, the more virtues you can use. Oh, that was so generous of you. You're so kind. You bring joy all the time. Show me how you can have self-control in this situation when you're talking to a child, for example. Those are all virtues words. And those virtues words also help us to regulate because they come from the spiritual side of it. So that's only under acknowledging feelings and sensations. Sensation words, emotion words, and the language of virtues, very important for helping us to just start to regulate on a daily basis. We can also be aware that we are likely making assumptions. I tell myself this all the time. So I go, I'm feeling very judgmental today. That means I'm sleepy. If I'm having judgmental comments about people, I need to go to bed early tonight because that's what happens when I'm overtired, right? So, or I'm getting irritable. Is it time for supper yet? I think I'm hungry, right? So noticing an emotion that is a trap, a cognitive trap is judgmentalism, irritability, frustration, and we become defensive, we start blaming people and judging people. All of those things are just cognitive traps. And when we notice them, we go, oh, what does my body need right now that would help me to settle down? When you do that, you're listening to the needs of your body, makes you more open and curious about the people and things around you. Otherwise, you're shut off from it because your own needs are screaming at you and you're not meeting them. And another thing, when my dad had severe dementia and was in extended care, and what would happen to him and to other old people when they didn't get enough water was beyond belief. They would go into a coma without water. They would start to shake. And so if they hadn't had a glass of water that day, horrible things would start going wrong with their body. And their nervous system became very dysregulated when they didn't have water. So that's how important it is for us to pay attention to those needs. And then question your beliefs about success. Do I have any proof that I would fail every time I try to do this thing? Let me see. Actually, no. So if you start making a list of all the times you attempted something and succeeded, and then the times that you failed, did you actually fail? That is a cognitive exercise that brings more blood flow to your brain and makes you think, maybe this is just my hippocampus playing tricks on me with giving me a story that no longer serves me. So acknowledging, breathing, noticing, thinking, if I'm feeling weird this way towards other people, there must be something that I need to settle in my own physiological self. And then these beliefs that I have, are they true? That could help us to get through prejudice too. Do I have any evidence that Polish people are rude? Only one person in a 15-second event that probably had nothing to do with me. Wait a minute, I need more experience with people from a Polish background so that I can be more balanced in my judgment. Okay, so now we come to polyvagal theory. Polyvagal theory is the idea that we are constantly under the influence of our nervous system, which runs perfectly, beautifully, and well and heals itself on its own, as long as it hasn't had a disruption like a war like famine, like a natural disaster, like abuse, when it gets those kinds of disruptions happening, then the body starts to anticipate and expect unsafe situations and catastrophize, or to say things can never get better because this is all I've ever experienced, therefore there is no future. So all of those things are linked to our nervous system. And other than breath, the most important piece of polyvagal theory is that social connection heals. And right now, post-COVID, we are connecting with each other socially 70% less than we were during COVID. Loneliness is the new epidemic, and people are dying of loneliness. And we are afraid of connecting with other people because we're in this state of paranoia and fear and anxiety. So here's a quick solution. Just think about spending time with someone you like. And just thinking about that starts to create all the healing, rest, and happiness hormones in your body. And a few minutes later or an hour later, you'll go, oh, I think I'll call so-and-so. You get an idea for how to connect with somebody. So if you are feeling threatened and isolated, but you can't move past it, since your nervous system is feeling under threat, imagine a time that you enjoyed spending with somebody that you love and care about. And that will start to regulate your nervous system. Cool, hey? So all the things that we would naturally do as human beings, if we were living together in a tribe, means we would have so much social connection all the time, but right now we don't. And so we're connected to devices, but not to people so much. And we need to turn that around because it's very hard on our bodies. The bodies are biological and they need to have connection in order to feel safe. So now here's the polyvagal theory in a nutshell with 3 streams to look at. Ventral vagal is the state we're trying to be in more often. That's when your nervous system is responding appropriately. And if something comes to disrupt it and you have a high sympathetic response, you go, oh, scary. Okay, I'm good now. Oh, I think I'm shutting down. Oh, I'm good now. So it can regulate itself and go back and forth. That's when you have resilience. When you don't have resilience, your nervous system is collapsed and everything that's either super irritating, over exciting for you, over sympathetic. It's not sympathetic as in a virtue, but the sympathetic system just sends you into crisis, or you just shut down and you can't communicate and you're frozen. So in their normal states, you need a sympathetic state so you can have some enjoyment in life, like share a joke and cheer at a game that you're at. Listen with great interest and passion to some music that you like. That's the sympathetic nervous system doing what it's supposed to do when it's healthy. But when it's unhealthy, it moves into fight flight, and it's very hard to control. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by a very strong, unpleasant emotion, that's your sympathetic system going into overdrive. But we do need to have that sympathetic response. We just don't want it to be out of control. And the dorsal response is the play dead. When your body goes, it's so scary, I'm just going to shut everything down. Normally, we need a dorsal response to rest and to sleep. So if we can't sleep, our dorsal response is dysregulated. So bringing all of those things back to health is bringing them into stasis. And that comes from noticing what's going on in your body, tending to the body's needs more appropriately rather than pushing things out or down or just caving into cravings. A need and a craving is not the same thing. And so then you start to be more regulated. And the way you know you're regulated is because you're interested in people, you're interested in learning, you feel focused, you're happy, you have a joyful response. And when something unpleasant happens, you respond to it and then you come back to where you were before. So the more often you are in that state, the more connected, creative, and compassionate you are as a human being, which is what we need right now in the world. So there's a lot more to polyvagal here, but that's the basics. So what do you do with this knowledge? I mean, I've been blabbering at you for half an hour already. So how is this useful to you? Well, remember this. Remember to breathe. Remember to notice your breath. There's a study that was done it was really interesting. Another coach told me about it, a study that was done recently with students in a university in a large class. There were hundreds of students in this class. And the instructor said, remember to breathe, notice your breath as a daily practice during classes, during lectures. And during the exam, half the students had on the top of their exam, or either virtually or paper, I don't know what it was, breathe on the top of the exam. And the other half had nothing, just the exam. Guess who did better on the exam? All the students that had breathe on the top. And because they'd been practicing it in class, because the instructor kept saying it. So it had become part of their automatic response. They calmed themselves down and they did much better on the exam. I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was significant, like, 20 or 30% higher for that whole sector of the students. So breathing is really important. Moving is really important. So sitting is the new smoking. And if you just get up and stretch is really important. And when you move, you start to interact with your environment, and you often will notice people in the environment too, and you might smile at them. So then that gives you a social connection, which is the third one. So breathe, move, and connect. And if you can do continuous 20 minutes of any movement during the day, you will de-stress your body from the day's difficulties. So any continuous movement for 20 minutes, swimming, walking, doesn't have to be fast, just has to be continuous moving. Those 20 minutes will regulate your body. You can take breath, continuous movement for 20 minutes, and connecting or imagining connecting with another person every day, you will start to feel better. Good, eh? So it's things that our body already does, but it's being more intentional about it. So how do you work with your body? Notice the body cues sooner. Notice, I'm working with a trainer right now, and she noticed that whenever I start something new, I hold my breath. And I was totally unaware of this because I've been doing breathing exercises for years, but I didn't notice that when I start something new, I hold my breath. So she shows this new exercise and go, and hold my breath, right? So now that I'm aware of it, I'm paying attention. And throughout the day, I'm noticing that there are other times when I hold my breath. So this awareness can be really useful. And the other thing, notice your emotions sooner. So if instead of just, react, you think, I'm thinking, for example, of driving with many people that I know. I drive with these people. As soon as somebody cuts in front of them or someone goes too fast or there's somebody with a loud muffler or whatever, they just have a sudden reaction. Just notice, oh, irritated. If you notice you're feeling irritated, that will help you to calm down. And then also tune into tension spots in your body sooner. Often when I'm working with clients, I ask them to say, just do a scan of your body. Where are the areas that feel tense? Some people, it's just one place. Some people, it's 5 or 6, and they hadn't even noticed them before. And then we do this thing like, well, what color would each of them be? And then now that they've noticed the tension and they give it a color, whether or not it means anything, it starts to release. And after we finish the session, often they don't have tension in several of those spots, or the tension's gone down really significantly and they don't feel any pain. And they go, oh, my neck doesn't hurt anymore. It's because noticing the sensations is very important. And the other thing is, if you feel threatened or defensive, judgmental, you feel like something is very unfamiliar to you, go back to number 1. Notice your breath, your body, notice your emotion, and just remind yourself that this is just your body trying to keep yourself safe. And that will help increase the blood flow to your brain and make you feel better. Something that I like to teach people is EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques Tapping Points, which I had to go through a very rigorous 3-year program to learn with a lot of supervision. And it is based on the Chinese acupuncture system, but there are no needles involved. And so it looks like this. You tap on the side of your hand, and if you follow along with me and do this, then you can let me know how you feel afterwards. You tap on the side of your hand, and then you tap on your eyebrow point right here, not in the middle of your forehead, on your eyebrow point. Tap on the side of your eye on the bone. And tap on your cheekbone. And under your nose. Under your mouth. On your collarbone. And then take one of your hands and go to the other side and tap on your rib cage. I'm about halfway down. and top of the head. I do this every morning. It takes me about 30 seconds. I do 3 rounds. I don't do anything but this. So this is side of the hand, eyebrows, side of the eye, cheekbone, under the nose, under the mouth, collarbone, rib cage, and top of the head. And these are nervous system regulation points from Chinese acupuncture, which is thousands of years old. And in communism, Chairman Mao told acupuncturists to take all of these points out so that people would be in fear. So acupuncturists were not allowed to needle the points that would help people to calm down. Now you can see how much when people know something, they don't always use it positively. So we're going, you can use this 3 rounds of tapping every day for 5 days in a row and see what happens. Most people feel much calmer. And then they think, oh, you know what? I should call my sister. Or they think, today would be a good day to go for a walk. They start to tune in both to their nervous system and also spiritually, they start to tune in. So it's a very helpful practice. I do a lot more with it than just that, but this is the basics, and using the basics is always great. We can see all of these eggs that would crash. All of those emotions can be calmed and regulated so that we feel generally better, and then we notice the emotions when they're there and appreciate them, but they don't control us. These are the points. So when you get the recording and the PowerPoint, you can look at the points if you forget what they are. I had a terrible time trying to find a good image that I had permission to use to put into this. So I'm glad I at least have this one. None of them were great, but this is the best of the lot. And so you can see where they are. And they all help. You can tap on any of the points. If I'm worried about something and I'm driving, I'll have one hand on the steering wheel, and the other hand I'll be tapping on the rib cage or on the collar bone point. And within a minute or two, I'm calm. So you can use it regularly. And if you're in public, of course, you're not going to be tapping on all these points. People will think you've lost your mind. So here's the more publicly appropriate way to do that. And that is to take your thumb and finger in one hand and just squeeze on your nail bed. So squeezing on the nail bed of your fingers, particularly the thumb, is nervous system regulation points. Also your toe, but you're not going to go squeezing on your toe nor a nail bed in public. So we'll go with the thumb, and you can do that very discreetly behind your back or in your lap, and nobody will ever notice you're doing it, and it will keep you calm. And I've used this when I've been in meetings where I'm starting to say, you know what, if anybody says anything like this again, I'm going to scream. I go, I'm feeling very defensive. I start squeezing my thumb. Within 30 seconds or less, I start to calm down. And then I can listen much better with more open-hearted curiosity. So this is a useful tool. We go breathe, move, connect, and then try using the tapping points and see what happens. See what you notice. Now, how does this relate to faith? I hope I'm okay with time. Am I okay with time? Are we good for another 5 minutes? Somebody give me a sign.
It's 3 minutes to 1 or to 2.
Okay, all right. So, what to do when you're faced with something you know you should do from a faith perspective, but you just don't do it? Many people tell me they want to pray, but they don't. Or they want to be regular with their prayer in the morning or evening, or their obligatory prayer, and they don't do it. And they wonder, why don't I do it when I know I should do it? And even in fact, it's like it's a spiritual law. Why am I not doing it? Well, here's some things that you can do. Check your nervous system for resistance. Like, I am feeling resistant right now to saying prayers. And then you can just tap on the side of your hand if you happen to be sitting by yourself and think, I'm noticing I'm feeling very resistant to saying my prayers today. I accept that I'm feeling resistant. And then once you've done that, you think, if I were to commit to praying, what would feel most true to me? Well, let's say I wish I could pray every day. If that feels true, then you go, okay, that's what I accept. That's where I'm at right now. I want to pray every day. Or I am going to pray today. Or I will pray today and tomorrow. So the higher your commitment level is, the less resistance you have. If you're feeling really resistant to it, you say, well, I wish I would want to pray. Right now, I don't want to. And I accept that that's where I'm at. The reason that's important is because once you accept it, that opens up the horizon for it to grow, to move beyond where it was at, because that's just a benchmark. And a lot of times you can release a trapped emotion around that. I've helped clients do that, where there's some emotion that was related to a bad experience they had with religion or prayer in their lives. And once it's released, they suddenly want to pray and they have deep spiritual experiences with prayer. That's something you might need some help with, but it can be done. And then you can be inspired with the desire of virtue. So you could have your deck of virtues cards or a virtues card app or a poster with virtues on it, and you go, you know what would help me feel more inspired to pray? And so then you look at it and pick a virtue from there and go, all right, that's the one I'm going to focus on today and see what happens. And you can reinforce the desire to pray by reading from the sacred writings. So you read from any of the sacred writings and you go, oh, that was so inspiring. And then you may want to pray afterwards because you've just been inspired. Any small win that you do towards prayer is going to help you to get closer to making prayer an integral part of your daily experience. So this is how you can integrate the two. Another thing can happen with service. So people want to serve, but they can't take action to do it. And so it's usually based in some fear that they have, but it's not conscious. So I notice that when I think about doing this service, I feel tense. I feel it in my gut. It feels like a churning in my gut. I'm just noticing it right now. Wait for a minute. It will settle down. And then you can go to the spiritual part and go, I need courage right now. Let me say a prayer for courage. Immerse yourself in thinking about what it would be like to do the service that you would like to be able to do with freedom, with courage, and with inspiration. Just imagine the positive outcome of you possibly do it. And you don't actually have to do it, because the more you start to imagine it, the more likely you are to move into that. In the same way that people can imagine doing mean, vicious acts, people can imagine doing beneficent, wonderful acts. And the more we imagine them, the more likely we are to do them. But right now, if we imagine nothing, we never get anywhere. So serving often involves imagining ourselves in that context. And if you're feeling, blocked by fear, I already talked about that, so I won't go into it in too much detail. But slow your breath down and keep imagining a person or people that you enjoy spending time with. And just think, wow, that feels really good. That feels like joy. That feels like safety. That feels like a warm blanket. And those associations will help you to move from fear into more regulated brain flow in your brain. So we are almost at the very end now. So to tune into your body to emotionally regulate, attune to the spirit to inspire and to motivate yourself for action. Because once you're inspired, you will just want to do it. And when you attune to reverence, you regulate. See this beautiful picture of a child praying so fervently. And when you tune into regulation, you increase reverence. So it's so good. You increase all those high vibrational spiritual emotions from putting the two together. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So you will get a copy of the PowerPoint, I think, and you'll also get a copy of the recording, and so you can look at it if you want to, and I will stop the share. Comments, questions?
Thank you, Marie. That was very enlightening.
That was great, Marie. Thank you. And any questions, as you said? And you keep it in the chat. Well, Gail, can you?
I will.
Thank
And I'm
you.
just going to put this back on gallery so we can all see each other.
Anybody?
Can I have a question, please? What is praying?
Can you say that louder?
What is a prayer? When you
What
pray,
is a prayer?
yeah, pardon me?
So you want to know what is praying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So prayer is connection to a divine force that is bigger than you, which is benevolent and loving. So seeking connection, asking for connection, sitting in the presence of that connection is all prayer. Does that help?
Oh, very much so. Just uh, when you pray, you connect with a divine, but would that be your creator?
Yeah. So for me, I'm connecting with the Creator, and you can connect with the Creator through any of the prophets of God as well. So, and you can connect through sacred writings. You can connect by going into nature in the forest or by a river or by a lake and just appreciate the beauty of nature. All of those things are connecting to the divine. Prayer can also be worship in the spirit, like work in the spirit of service is also prayer. And because work in the spirit of service and excellence is you wanting to do your best in front of the Creator and for humanity. So that's also prayer. All of that is prayer.
And the other side of the question is there a devil factor in the concept of Baha'i?
There's some distortion in the sounds. I'm having a little trouble hearing your question.
Like
He's asking about devil.
Oh,
Satan.
a devil question? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yes. What
Like
is
you're wondering if you might be influenced by an evil spirit or by Satan or something like that if you open yourself up to prayer? Are you
Higher
wondering?
beings that influence negative instead of positive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Baha'i faith, Satan is the insistent self, the ego. And that the more we strive for virtue, to be of service to humanity, to develop spiritual capacity, the closer we are to heaven and to the Creator. And when we don't do that, we leave a vacuum that is filled with vice. And then we become focused on vice, which is unhealthy and which is causing all the problems we have in the world now. So it does take an effort and an effort to be open to that influence. But, I don't know what all the worlds of God are. So there may be some evil spirits at some point somewhere that I don't know about. But the belief in the Baha'i faith is that it's when the ego takes over and is no longer submissive to God and in a state of prayer, that's when evil happens.
Can I tell you the reason why I asked this two-part question?
Sure.
I was born in Egypt 77 years ago. And in high school, there was some colleagues that were Baha'i faith along that line. And these people disappeared in my life as I grew up. And then when I came to Canada in the 70s, I met some Egyptian Baha'is and we became friends. So my question that has been always is why the Baha'is have been chased out of Egypt.
Okay. So from the beginning of the Baha'i faith, Baha'is have been persecuted in the Middle East. But the main reason is because if Muhammad is the seal of the prophets, nobody can have a revelation after Muhammad. So Baha'u'llah does not say he is a prophet. He says that the cycle of what's it called? Prophecy. The cycle of prophecy ended with Muhammad, and that Muhammad was the last prophet. And so we would still have revelation from other messengers from God, but they wouldn't be prophesying. And Baha'u'llah didn't prophesize either. He said, here are the guidelines to have a peaceful world. Let's follow them so we can get past war and disease. But he didn't say any prophecies. So, but in Islam, this was not understood. And also the clergy was very powerful. And one of the teachings of the Baha'i faith is that there is no clergy. We are responsible for our own spiritual and moral development, and that there are elected and appointed bodies that take the place of clergy that have checks and balances in place to make sure that no oppression can take place. And so that would mean then that the clergy would lose their power, which most clergy didn't like very much. And then you add to that, women and men are equal, science and religion agree. We need to learn an extra auxiliary language that everyone on the planet learns so we can communicate with each other in addition to our mother tongues and other languages. We need a universal system of government that is based on true democratic representation of the entire world. And you can see why people start to get worried. So then They started persecuting the Baha'is and sending them out, and it's very repressive.
Thanks for clarifying that. I'm gonna get off. Just the first time for me to hear a lecture from a Baha'i person, and that was very enlightening. And you can see that my question has to do with the divine and the devil. It has nothing to do with the prophets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, thank you for your questions.
yeah, I am just concerned that it is good to know.
Mm-hmm. I believe Karen has a question too, and it looks like there's a couple of other people with questions. And I'm okay until a quarter after, and then I will have to leave.
Thank you.
You have the next question.
I just had a comment. There's a beautiful Baha'i temple. There's a beautiful Baha'i temple in Haifa in Israel
Mm-hmm.
with gorgeous gardens surrounding it. And I've been there. I've been in it, and I've been in a Baha'i temple outside of Chicago. They're gorgeous, and you're right that you just go in and you feel a sense of serenity and calm and peacefulness. So they haven't been kicked out of all of the Middle East, just the Muslim countries.
Not all of them either, but Marie, that's because he happened to die there, right?
I'm sorry?
That's because he happened to die in Haifa, right?
Yes, Baha'u'llah
Yes.
died there.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Got one more question over.
Okay,
Blair,
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I want to get back to your Polish experience.
I made that up because I actually have ancestors that are Polish, so I thought that would be safe.
Yeah, no, but what my question has to do with what if you have that sort of internal monologue that says Polish people are bad, even though you've only ever met one and that was for 15 seconds. But what happens when the entire society around you is also telling you that Polish people are bad? Because that's what we live in our province right now, where certain groups we are told are bad. So it becomes more than just an internal monologue. It is reinforced by the society in which we live.
Mm-hmm. That's why
Where do you go with that?
the role of a spiritual and moral education in helping people to see reality and to make conscious decisions that are not based on prejudice is imperative. And we don't have that right now. So, other than in small pockets here and there. So it's, it's part of it is media. So there's certain media things that can be helped, but when the media is restricted, then you have problems. It's a whole other presentation to go into the answer to your question, but it is based in the importance and the imperative for a moral and spiritual education that we can all embrace, that is not based on specific dogma, but based on universal principles that we all agree to. For example, virtues. Who's going to argue with love and hope and peace? We want those things. We think those things are really beneficial. And so we need to focus on that to help bring points of unity. And in a situation where we find ourselves in these polarized conversations, Baha'is have received guidance from the Universal House of Justice saying, look for points of unity. Try to find places where you can have some agreement. And if you can create any point of unity, it will help dissolve the bias and the prejudice that's existing around you. So that's what we're trying to do, but I'm not saying it's an easy task.
and then this question.
One more.
Okay, you mentioned about a universal language. So my question is, ĉu vi parolas Esperante?
Well, interestingly, the early Baha'is, many of them were also learned Esperanto because they hoped that Esperanto would be that universal language. And there are still quite a few Baha'is in the world who, speak Esperanto and belong to Esperanto societies. But
we know that.
yeah, but Baha'u'llah said that either a language would be invented or chosen from among the languages of the world that we would all learn. So we don't know what that is yet. But
So you're waiting until they choose it.
yeah.
But some people are not waiting. They figure it's a good candidate for it and they're learning it. And we've met them at Esperanto conferences.
Yeah, and Esperanto, people who speak Esperanto are lovely. It's such a yeah. It's wonderful to meet them, you know.
Pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running out of time here, but are there any more questions?
Are we able to see your PowerPoint presentation online?
Well, I think so. Right now, the Interfaith needs their internet person to come back and send everything out there. But I did send the both of the slides, and then you have the cloud recording. So
Yes.
the cloud
Could you-
recording, you just provide the link and people can look at it and
Could you
watch
put
it.
your contact screen back up again?
Sure, happy to. Would help if I clicked on the right button. There it is.
And also the name of the book that you mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, I will send the information about the book. The book that I wrote is called The Spirit of Work. And it's the teachings from all the world religions and indigenous teachings about work and how to spiritualize work and practical examples. So that's my book. But then the chapter, I'll send the information about the chapter. That's the free download. My book is not expensive either. You can get it on Amazon for $26 or Kindle for $6. But the other one is free open source, and it's spiritual and moral education of children around the world from various religious perspectives. Extremely interesting.
On slide 27, I think you have a typo. It's spelled peace, P-E-A-S-E.
There are going to be typos on these, and I'll tell you why. Because I create these slides in an app called Beautiful. And when I download it from the app, because I'm not using their player, because then I'd have to ask Interfaith to use their player. When I download this presentation from the app, it introduces errors.
Why?
I don't know. The first time I tried to download it to send it to Interfaith a couple of days ago, it was repeating every second word. So the slides had every second word repeated in it. So I thought, oh, anyway, that's why. Apologies for that, but thank you for looking past it to the meat of the presentation.
Time reminder, it's past quarter after.
All right. I have a meeting in 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to let you go. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
all the thoughtful
Thank
questions.
you, Marie. That was very good. Thank you.
I'm glad you liked it. It was a pleasure to have such a warm and interested and thoughtful audience.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good day.